Postalmate webinar 11.9.5. Whoops, scratch that. 11.9.6 update. My name is Karen Grant and I'm your instructor today. So yes, I'll admit right up front, we had to have an emergency release of Postalmate yesterday due to some unforeseen things that happened, mainly from the Indicia ELS, so the new address validation program that we'll be talking today with the Zip 4s. So we have released 11.9.6. I know that's troublesome for you to have to do back-to-back updates, but this was completely unexpected. And it also fixed a bug over in the Mailbox Manager with saving. So it took care of two things at once. We believe 11.9.6 is a very good release, and you should all update to that. We're going to get right into this and talk about address validation. That's what you've been using for many years. You've been using Indicia's Dial-A-Zip, which has been really quite good. I mean, it's been very helpful and we've had it for a long time. It's been very reliable. And of course, just when you decide you really like something, the company that owns it decides to get rid of it. And in software technology, we call that sunsetting. That's a polite way of saying we're actually killing it with a knife, you know. So that's what they're doing, is sunsetting Dial-A-Zip. I don't know why. I imagine it has to do with some old technology that they feel is going away. Our information from Indicia indicates that they are actually sunsetting it tomorrow on June 11th. I don't know if they're going to hit that target date or not, but either way, we had to be prepared for it and have a new option for you. So we've got that for you. For those of you who don't use Indicia, stay tuned. We have information for you too. Excuse me, I've got froggies in my throat. Every Wednesday morning, there's frogs that jump in my throat. Okay, so the old way was Indicia's Dial-A-Zip, and that worked for everybody, whether you had Indicia or didn't have Indicia. So if you used only UPS or only FedEx, you could still use Dial-A-Zip. It was the program that was able to help you with your address corrections or verification, validation, whatever you want to call it, and also helped you to know, but wasn't guaranteed, with residential and commercial for UPS and FedEx. The new program is called Indicia ELS Address Validation, and that's what almost all of you will be using. But you have to have an Indicia account that's set up in Postalmate in order to be eligible to use this. Otherwise, Indicia's basically made a rule: if you don't have an account with us, you can't have it. So we had to come up with an alternative solution for the stores that we have that don't use Indicia. Now, that's not a lot of stores, but it was enough that we needed to come up with another way of doing it. So the only way we could do that, and we were looking for services that didn't charge, so we wouldn't have to raise our rates for this. We only have, I'm going to say 150 maybe stores that don't have Indicia. So it's not a huge amount out of over 3,000, but it's a significant number. We didn't want to leave you in the dust. So we looked at your, what the next best solution was. It turns out that most of those stores do have FedEx, and FedEx offers a FedEx address validation that we have also created an API link to. So you can use, if you don't have an Indicia account, you can use the FedEx address validation. So now your question is, well, if FedEx has one and Indicia has one, why do I want to use Indicia's instead of FedEx's, since I ship with both carriers, right? So let's look at the difference between the two and decide what's best for you. And in our testing and results, we have seen that the Indicia ELS address validation has better address results for most addresses. It's not, I'm not going to say it's as good as as Dial-A-Zip. I'm not going to say it's worse. I don't think we have enough testing. So it is comparable at this point. We may decide in the future that it's not quite as good, or maybe it's a little better than what we had. But right now, it does give better results than the FedEx address validation. FedEx address validation in particular struggles with PO boxes, Zip 4s, and military addresses. And that's because FedEx can't go to PO boxes and FedEx can't go to military addresses. And Zip 4 is specific to post office. It's not really used by the other carriers. So FedEx address validation would be definitely a second choice, not a first choice. So if you have an option, you will want to stay with Indicia ELS. Now, we do have a handful of customers, and I do mean it's a handful of customers that do not have an Indicia account and do not use FedEx. They use maybe UPS and perhaps a regional carrier, but they don't use UPS, or excuse me, they don't use Indicia or FedEx. If you happen to be amongst those in this group, I apologize. We don't have a solution for you at this time, and I don't know that we will have one. So you may be without address validation. However, we have something that can help you. I want to take a quick poll just so we have an idea who we're talking about. If you would be so kind as to vote on this. In PostalMate, I have an active, and what is it? Indicia account, FedEx, but no Indicia, or only UPS, but not FedEx or Indicia. And let's see what my crowd is, what I'm talking to here. So I make sure and address your questions properly. Okay. I'm going to close this poll in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Thank you. Okay, so I'll share with that with you, and that is not a surprise to me that we had 98% of you have an Indicia account, and that's kind of what I expected. 2% have FedEx but no Indicia, and fortunately no that have UPS but no FedEx or Indicia. So that's pretty good. We'll move forward now. And let's come on screen, there we go. And so I think the answer for most of you will be the Indicia ELS address verification. When you updated, if PostalMate detected you have an Indicia account, it automatically set you for this. So you shouldn't have to take any action. Also, when you updated, if you don't, for those 2%, if you don't have an Indicia account set up in PostalMate, but you do have a FedEx account selected in PostalMate, it would have automatically selected FedEx for you. So that's a lot of automation happening in the background. And we've seen that work pretty well. So what does this all look like? Well, it's a little bit different looking. Obviously, you're still going to enter the address as you always have. Get a little bit bigger close up. The result over here is slightly different. You'll get a slightly different message here where full address was verified, classified as residential. So it might be a little bit different wording, but that's kind of the general gist of it, if you will, gist of it. But I do want to say, and I can't say this often enough because we need to hear it over and new people need to know this. When we use address validation to verify an address through Indicia ELS, it is not checking to see if it's residential or commercial according to FedEx and UPS rules, okay? It is only checking for that using what Indicia or post office has available. That's not going to help you a lot with residential and commercial for UPS and FedEx. So for example, the one I like to use a lot, but there's a lot of examples for that, is a nursing home. If you're sending to Grandma Jean at the nursing home, that's going to a residence technically by UPS and FedEx. They can charge you for a residential shipment. But if you're sending to the director, Jane Smith, at the office, an office at the nursing home, clearly that's a business. So you can have an address be both technically, and you might have to argue to get that business or that commercial rating. They might bill you residential because it is actually the delivery driver for UPS and FedEx that determines whether the address is residential or commercial. Excuse me. Rule of thumb, if somebody does sleep there or can sleep there, it's a residence. Okay. And moving forward, no, Karen, everybody else is able to hear. And then so this is the other hint. And some of you have been around a while are going to know where I'm going with this. But when you go and hit a browser and you start typing in an address, like this is on Google Maps, start typing in an address. You know how they have this drop down occur and it has all these addresses? Well, I know you can kind of figure out from the way I worded this, PostalMate has that option in PostalMate. And that's a great secondary way of helping to make sure that your addresses are correct. It uses an outside source to verify the address. So basically, if you had this turned on and you used ELS address verification, you would be double verifying the addresses, which is never a bad thing. That it can be enabled right here. Now, I have some news about that system, but I want to launch my second and last poll because I think some of you maybe tried this, but please help me out with this poll here again, and let's see if it's true. And maybe I just need to do a full webinar on this feature. But do you use it? Have you tried it and turned it off? Did you not know it was there? You don't want to have good addresses? I mean, you know, tell me where you're at here. Some of you newer people probably didn't even know it existed. And so I'm going to close this poll in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And thank you for that. I'll share the results of this as well. So 69% of you use it and love it. 8% tried it and turned it off. And those are the people I'm going to address. And 23% are like, whoa, I didn't know we could have that. That's cool. I want that. So please go and enable this. And it's Tools, Postomate Settings, and then Shipping Settings, and then that other tab. So up at the top of Postomate, you go Tools, and then Postomate Settings, Shipping Settings here, the other tab here, and it's the check mark right down here. And by the way, as long as we're here, this is where it's choosing your address validator. So either Indicia or FedEx would be chosen here. That's already selected automatically by Postomate for you, but you could change it if you wanted. I just don't recommend it. So for the 8% of you that had tried it and turned it off, I'm going to recommend you give it another try. During the first, I'm going to say 8 weeks, 12 weeks that we had it, we were doing some refinements on it, and it was a little bit rough for especially the first few weeks, and it was just a little bit rough. It's really quite smooth, and we can see that by the 69% that use it and love it. It really is a great feature now and runs very, very smooth. So I highly recommend that you try it out again if you tried it before and get that turned on. Okay, I will hide that poll and go back to, wait, it always takes a minute. There we go. I'm sorry, here's where it is. Shipping settings, tools, Postomate settings, shipping settings, other, and then enabled. I have a very bad habit of forgetting to turn off the poll, and you guys were very good at reminding me, so thank you for that. Okay, and then again, here's where that address validation is, that Indicia address validation. I need to keep an eye on what you see more. All right. Okay, so, and here's kind of an example. In fact, we're going to take a bigger look at what that would look like, because there's, like I said, there's never anything bad with having 2 validations. So when you're entering an address, you'll have a drop down here and you can choose from it. You can always choose none of the above. If you have a weird address or a new address that's not in that validation system, you can choose none of the above and continue to enter the address as your customer has given it to you. No problem. However, I will tell you that in this example, and I chose this one because it has quite a long list of addresses available. And as you can see, they're from all over the country: Vermont, Texas, Tennessee, Louisiana, Pennsylvania, California, Maryland, you know, all over. So you can narrow that down, and it just depends on how you have your Postmate set up. My favorite way to have it set up is when you're entering the zip code to where the package is going, or the place to where the package is going, you start with the zip code. When you do that, if you enter the zip code and then you hit add to add that new address, then only addresses that fit the letters that you're typing, the alphanumeric that you're typing in that zip code will show up. So usually you will get 1, maybe 2, sometimes 3. So there could be like a Pine Hill Road, a Pine Hill Court, and a Pine Hill Circle. So they might show up at this point, but that would be about it. So it would really limit any opportunities of making a mistake, and to further ensure that you don't make a mistake, because we all know that we use that mouse and we click the wrong things sometimes because we're mouse happy. The next screen, oops, let's go back. I'll say that in a minute. The next screen is going to ask you to click yes, that's the address you want. But before we get there, if this address happens to be going to an apartment or a business that has suites, it will also populate a list of the applicable apartment numbers or suite numbers. It knows which ones can be assigned to that particular address. That means it's going to really help in avoiding forgetting to add that apartment or suite number. Sometimes your customer doesn't know there's a suite number or an apartment number. And so this would say, you'd say to your customer, well, which suite number? Well, I don't have a suite number. You know what? Use your cell phone, go over in the corner column and get the suite number, because we want to make sure we get the right address. And so you can take care of business right away with that. And like I said, then when you select it, it's going to ask you one last time, is this the address you want? If your mouse click happy like I get sometimes and you click the wrong one, you could select no and go back. So there you go. And when you do this, it does automatically send it to the ELS with Indicia. So it also verifies all at once too. So you don't have to click the verify address button. So it kind of does both at once for you. Kind of cool. Okay, so that's all I have on Address Verify at this time, but you have questions. And if I have not addressed your questions on Address Verify, go ahead and type those in. We'll get to those in a little bit, because we are going to now talk about the second part of this update, which is the new CMRA rules change, which was ID for box holders. So actually this rule change happened in May of 2019. And yes, we are a little bit late in getting this in Postalmate, but there's a reason for that. And I'll get to that reason shortly. And it has to do with what the speed of things moving in the post office, which is dead slow, as you know. So we finally decided we couldn't wait on them any longer, and we added this anyway. It is about whether or not, or actually what IDs you can accept for ID number 1 and ID number 2. They have changed, and you are limited on ID number 1 now, very limited on it. So we'll go to that. These are the rules having to do with it. And if you are a rule reader, the DMM, for those of you who are newer, is the Domestic Mail Manual. It increases almost daily. It's not quite true, but it increases monthly for sure. And it's currently at 1,319 pages. You can no longer get it in print. However, you can print the whole thing out if you really want to. Why would you? And so if you want to read the fine print, well, these are the sections that you can, but I'm going to tell you in a nutshell what it says. We're going to talk about the gray areas involved with these rules, because it's laws. I mean, these rules are laws. And so there's a lot of vagarity in there, not vulgarity, but vagarity. And so we'll talk about that gray area. In Postalmate, you will see that ID change. When you now are entering IDs for a customer, it's going to pop up a little wizard, which is new. You used to just fill in the little forms. But we had to create this wizard so we could differentiate address ID, or excuse me, ID number 1 from ID number 2. And so in ID number 1, you will see here that US government ID can be accepted, and that includes a number of things that are specific, and that's broken out. In fact, if we go, I'm going to go backwards here. In the print, US government ID is right over here. I don't know if I can, oops, nope, didn't let me highlight it. But right over here, sorry about that. You're getting dizzy from me doing that. I'll stop clicking. US government ID includes, it can be federal, state, or tribal, a state-issued driver's license, a non-driver's license, a U.S. Armed Forces card, a uniformed service ID card, a permanent resident or other identification card by U.S. Citizen and Immigration Services, and then it goes on. And so it explains these other things that you can use. So if we're going to be very picky and at black and white, if it's not one of those, it's not acceptable. We'll talk gray in a moment, but that's kind of it. Other acceptable IDs is a passport, and that includes a US passport or US passport card or a foreign passport. And then a matricular consular, a Nexus card, or a US university identification. We'll talk about that shortly too. So, and then ID number 2 can be any of the IDs that were okay for number 1, plus any of these that are listed here. So please understand, it's not just the ones listed here. It can be any of the previous ones plus the ones listed here. And there's new ones listed here. A utility bill did not used to be an acceptable form of a secondary ID. That was acceptable, I believe, only for a tertiary ID. Yes, I really did just say tertiary. As one type of ID was eliminated from the list, you can no longer accept corporate ID cards. So that would mean that the ID card, because they work for General Motors or IBM or Apple, those are no longer acceptable. Nor is a Costco card. That was never really supposed to be acceptable. And then credit cards, social security cards, and birth certificates have never been accepted. That's not new, but I put that up there to remind us that those are not acceptable IDs. So we will talk about these in detail. So I have some questions that were forwarded to me early on. I want to thank Chris. I don't know if Chris on this webinar live or if she's going to watch by recorded webinar, but she sent a list of questions in. So I've included some of her questions, but and then some that you all have, and then I will address your questions on these things too. So I do want to say that a lot of this is subjective, and I will do my best, but I don't work for the post office and I don't create post office rules, nor am I the person that gets to judge what is and is not. I'll give you my best professional opinion, but it is your store and your decision. If you belong to a franchise and you want their opinion, I think that's very smart to do. If you belong to another organization and want their opinion, I think that's very smart to do. So here we go. What counts as government ID? We just went through the list. It's black and white. That's what it is. So the next question is, well, is a CCP, gun permit, a government ID? Well, yes, it is a government ID, but is it an acceptable government ID for the purposes of renting a mailbox? No, it's not on that list. Okay, that's my black and white. I would much rather teach black and white to you than gray, because gray is very subjective. I can't get into any trouble for saying no on that because it's not on that list. Okay. What about a college instead of a university? Okay, this is where I'm willing to get into a little bit of trouble. Let me give you my opinion for what it's worth, and I apologize because it's only worth about 10 cents in a cup of coffee. The reason they did not put college and the reason they did put university is that a university is pretty much only a large institution recognized by governing boards and what have you. It's not always public. It can be private, but it's usually extremely recognized and regulated. Colleges, on the other hand, are a more of a broad group of things. So I'm going to give you two examples of a college, one that I would definitely not consider ID from this place to be acceptable, and one that I would accept at my own store, but it's gray enough that you have to make the call at your store. So Jaja's Beauty College. No, just no. I don't care if it's been around 15 years or 40 years or 2 years. No, this to me is probably why they didn't include the word college in this. However, in my city, we have, or in my neighborhood or area, we have a college called Mesa Community College. It is a community college. It's run by our county. Been around 75 years, not privately owned. This is a government institution, has over 25,000 students at this college. Yeah, I think that's probably going to, in my store, I would accept that because that, I believe, is adhering to the intention of the rule or the law. Is it black and white obeying this law, this rule? No, I would technically be in violation. But I think that the post office in that circumstance would probably not be real hard on me, would probably let that one go. But don't go very gray, folks. Just, I would rather that you be cut and dry. I would rather that you say only universities than start accepting Jaja's Beauty School. I think that you, or beauty college, excuse me. I think you have to be very careful. And in some areas, even private high schools are called colleges. And so a college is not necessarily a school that comes after high school. So that is your decision. But I gave you my opinion. What about a VA card? Well, I'm not a veteran and I don't have a VA card, so I can't make that call. I don't know if it has the appropriate information. What they're really looking for on this first card is a photo ID. I think it said specified photo ID. And I think they're looking for something for it to for the government, for the post office to be able to find that person. So again, I don't know on that one. Black and white, I'd say no, but is that considered a military ID? Maybe it is. And so maybe it would be okay. That's your call. I'm not going to make a judgment call on that one. And finally, this is the one you're all dying to know. Do I have to update ID on my current box holders? So I've been running mailboxes for 30 years and I don't think I have good ID that matches the new rules on all those people. So let me tell you, this is really great, guys. There is no answer from the post office. They have not supplied us with an answer on this. They just instituted the new rules. I'm going to give you two ideas or two thoughts, and then I'll give you my opinion, which, like I said, with 10 cents and a cup of coffee isn't worth a lot. I know that's not how the saying goes, but hey. Okay, let's say you live in a town and you have a beautiful green Victorian house, and all of a sudden the town passes a law and it says you can't have greenhouses in this town. Are you in violation of the town ordinance? I would say you are. Could they come and cite you? They probably can. Until you paint your house an ugly white, they're going to be able to cite you. So that's one way of thinking of it. However, let me give you another scenario. Sally and George got married, and Sally was 18 years old when they got married. And your state passed a brand new law that says that you cannot get married until you're 21 years of age. Now Sally is 18 and a half years old, and she's married. She's been married for 6 months. Is she still legally married? Well, of course she is. Even though the law now says you have to be 21 or more to get married, it's a contractual agreement that she signed that was legal at the time of signing. It is legal and valid. That's the one I would lean towards. So I'm just going to say that we're not going to upset Sally and George on the wedding thing. Folks, do not go to a lot of trouble. My personal advice to you is let sleeping dogs lie. If the post office wants us to get updated IDs on all the previous box holders, let's let them tell us that. When should you get proper IDs, new IDs for? This law went into effect for May of 2019. I think it is good advice for me to give you that you should go into your records and go back through until May of 2019, so a little over a year ago. Anybody who's rented a mailbox from that point forward, if their ID does not meet the current requirements, then I think it would behoove you to start working on that. It's not something you have to do tomorrow or next week. It's something that you can work on maybe every 3 months when they renew, or maybe fall or summer is slower for you and you'll do it during that time. Maybe you've got time on Saturdays to work on that. Don't go crazy on this, okay? Get correct ID from today forward. Work on updating your ID only for box holders who rented between May 2019 and now. And those that rented previous to May of 2019, let's just not, you have other things to do. You have so many things in your business to help make it grow and expand until the post office comes and says, yes, this affects previous box holders. I don't think you should spend a lot of time. Now, if you want to check with your franchise or your association that you belong to see if they agree with me, that's fine. I will tell you that I've had some conversations with both, and that kind of was the message that they were giving. So I think I'm correct in that, but I'm willing to be corrected by them. So I just, let's not go crazy with this new rule. Okay, and here's some backup information for you. The current 1583 that your customers sign, the legal agreement that your customers sign and you sign or somebody from your store signs, is dated 2004. The post office has not updated this form with the new ID requirements. So it's a case of the law says one thing, but the form that you're signing and that they provide says another thing. So I don't think they have a lot of wiggle room on enforcement right now until they update their 1583. That doesn't mean that you should disobey the new rules. You should be in compliance from May 2019 forward. But what I'm saying is, I don't think the post office is going to spend a lot of effort going back and trying to get you to update previous box holders' ID when their own form is incorrect. The listing on the form of the ID is the old ID because, like I said, they haven't changed it in, what is that, 16 years, almost 16 years. So that's horrific. We do anticipate a new form coming out from the post office. That's what we were waiting for with from the post office to put in Postalmate. They kept saying it was coming, it was coming, it was coming. It didn't come. We said, fine, we're just going to put the IDs in now because at this point it's getting ridiculous. So with everything that's going on with COVID-19 and the way the post office, it would not surprise me that the new form for 1583 doesn't come out for the next few years. So these are the rules. We're going to follow the rules. We're going to be good in our industry and do what we're supposed to do, but we're not going to go crazy and try to anticipate that the post office might want us to go and do correct IDs from long ago. How's that? Okay, let's talk about cheat sheets. I always have a cheat sheet, but today I don't have a cheat sheet because this is all about the update. However, I did include some handouts that you may already have or you may want. So the first one is the 11.9.6 update guide. You may have printed that out or you maybe didn't. You can open that up. You don't have to print it. You can just look at it on your computer. And the second one is the tech notes. So for those 8% and those 23% that didn't know about the address autocomplete, there is a tech note there you can pop up and it walks you right through how to turn that on. So have fun with that. We encourage you to turn that on and try it. And I know it's different and it's going to shake you up every time you go to it and it's going to freak you out a little bit. Just try it for a week. Just promise yourself you'll try it for a week. And if you can't get used to it by a week and it's still making you fumble up, okay, if you need to turn it off, turn it off. Not everybody adapts to changes as well as other people. Sometimes you get so into your rhythm and your flow of things that any interruption to that is just really comically bad. So just depends on the nature of you and your employees. Okay, and so now you have lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of questions. So I'm going to try to get those questions. Oh my goodness. And I'm going to pull those questions over. So if you see me looking over here to one direction, it's because, oops, because I'm trying to get to your questions. And of course, what I did just now was make that screen stupid small. So that's not going to help me. Hang on. We do have over 700 people signed up for this webinar. So the questions could be a little bit crazy trying to get through. Okay. I don't use Indicia. Do I still have to update? Yes. If you don't use Indicia, if Indicia turns off Dial-A-Zip tomorrow, like they said they will, you will have no address validation or verification. And by mistake, if we put a name on the company line, does it verify as a business or a residential address? It will, if you mistakenly put only a name like Sarah Smith on company name, it will verify as a, I think it will override as a company. I'm not 100% sure on that. I believe it will. I haven't tried that on the new one, so I apologize for that. I'm not showing unpaused, right? You have, you know, you can see my question mark. With regard to apartment suites, you must select the address without, yes, Sandy, you are correct. When you're, let me go back, I don't know if I can go back to that, hang on. No, I didn't update my Postmate on this computer. I know I'm bad. Sorry, guys. Nope. Back further. I'm getting dizzy. Are you? Okay. Right here. Let me go back one more. So see how all these have a zip 4? If this was an apartment, you would have two with the same address, but one will be without a zip 4. Choose the one without the zip 4, and it will give you the option for apartments or suite numbers. So that probably, I don't have a good example of that. I apologize, and I don't have it on my Postmate on this computer. So, but you are absolutely correct, Sandy. Thank you for that reminder. Why would it say classified as unknown? I don't know. We do not know with the new Indicia ELS address validation. We don't know all the bumps and bruises that we're going to incur on this. We don't know the answers to everything yet. It's as new to us as it is to you. We literally had only about 5 days to test it because Indicia didn't have it ready for us. So, so we don't have a lot of experience with it yet. So if you get questions on it, you probably will have questions. I don't know all the answers to that yet. Okay, I think I answered that. What if we? No, these are all questions I seem to have answered. Yes, Gordon had that same comment. Larry says VA cards have a photo and a number to go with it. So that might be acceptable. If you feel that is considered a military ID, then that I would say you could accept. That's up to you. I don't know enough about it. Larry, if you know that from personal experience, thank you for your service. Sincerely, I have a lot of love for our servicemen and women. So I think if I had a a veteran that came in and he showed his VA card, I'd be inclined to accept it because I have a soft spot there. So I think it's up to you. Again, Robin, that's very smart. Her mailbox contract with her customers says that they have to update information, I imagine, periodically. Not that they read that, not that they'll do it because it's in there, but it does protect her. So that's very good. It is not possible to use both Indicia ELS address validation and FedEx address validation. You have to choose one or the other. It cannot go to both, and I don't believe that it ever will be able to go to both. Is ELS good for international shipments? No, I believe that is domestic only. So if other, okay, David, if other is not a choice, please put it back. As a notary, I'm always sure of my customer's single ID other. We cannot put other as an option for mailbox ID because it would give too many employees the opportunity to enter an ID that's not acceptable. So we have been asked to remove that. And can you show us where the ID rules are? That is in the DMM 608.10, and it does have a chart there. So just Google DMM 608 and go to 608.10, and you'll see it. Any other changes updates coming from mailbox managers? Not right away, but we have something very big that we are working on. No release date known, but it's very big. We're in the, I would say we're maybe a third of the way through it. So Julie does an audit yearly and updates expired IDs. How many of you want Julie to come to your store and do that at your store? That's very good of you, Julie. I can tell you that that was a weak spot of mine. It was just once it's done, and I put it away. By the way, I do want to say to each of you, you are required by law to have a copy of the 1583 signed in paper in your store. So please don't rely solely on what's in Postalmate. When you get that 1583, you are required by law to make a copy of it and put that in a file somewhere, and then the original goes to the post office. So make sure that you have that copy, because if your postal inspector ever comes in, they want to see a copy of the signature. They don't want to see one you print out fresh from your computer that doesn't have a signature. And have I heard anything about the new postmaster taking over on the 15th? I have not. I do know that it's happening, but I don't know any details or how that will affect our industry. I don't, we in our industry are off of their radar until some idiot rents a mailbox and blows up a building from stuff they got from that mailbox. Then all of a sudden we're on their radar. So right now, with everything going on in the world, we're pretty low on the I'm interested in what they're doing list for the post office, but all it takes is one idiot and we're back up at the top again. So, Robin, no. I would say no. Henry, your house is not green or white. So there. So, Andrew, I don't know of that. Sorry about that. Andrew's saying with the address autocomplete, it's not capitalizing the main address, but keeps the city, state, and zips and caps. I don't know, but I can tell you this, that when the label prints, the carrier determines, and I want to say, I could be wrong, most of the carriers, if not all, print out in all caps. Am I right on that? I think I'm close to right on that. Most of them print out in all caps, and that avoids what should and should not be capitalized. Thanks, Jeff. Okay. Show once again how the okay. Rara. I'm not quite understanding that. I don't think I have time to do that. Is there a way to remove the option to pick a city after you put in a zip? No. Well, no. The only way to do it is to remove the zip and re-enter the zip. So his point is perfect with New York City. Postalmate has different versions of New York City. In fact, I'll make a recommendation that one day we go through in development and relook at the options we have. So I want to say we have NYC, New York, New York City. There's probably an N period, York City. I don't know. There's a lot of options, and it's easy to choose the wrong one when you're in a hurry. Like I said, you get mouse click happy and you click the wrong one, and that carrier doesn't accept that particular city name, and then it throws an error at the end. So that's probably something we need to look at for other cities too, but I think it particularly affects New York City because there's so many different ways to write that. Why doesn't post office pay for drop-offs? Good question. Because they don't want you to take drop-offs. They don't want you to exist. Why would they pay you to help you? They would rather you go away and everybody take their packages and things directly to the post office so they can hire more post office employees and their post office union gets stronger. Okay, that's me on a soapbox. I'll get off my soapbox. Sorry, don't let me rant. Would I put the new CMRA rules up again? I would be happy to. There we go. And obviously, I don't recommend you try to read this fine print. It's probably pretty hard to read on your screen. Just if you Google DMM 508, and then you go to section 1.8.2, that's the rule. That section tells you that you have to abide by the new addressing rules. And then it says the addressing rules can be found at section 608.1. So I have my Cecilia Dorsey, you are so smart, darling. When she turns in her 1583s, she is able to talk her postmaster into round dating it with round dating the copy of her 1583, so that her copy not only exists, but it has a round date that shows that the post office accepted the original. I think that's clever as heck. They don't have to do that, but wow, what a great way to make sure that they know you're following the rules and that you could never get into any trouble. Really love that. You are right, HW. You also have to keep a copy of your quarterly report. So every quarter, you're printing out that quarterly report and handing it to your post office. You are legally required to keep a paper copy of that. Okay. Oh, yeah. Thank you, Roger. I just had it verified from Colette, who is the goddess of everything knowledgeable about Postalmate. And Indicia label servers address validation, which is our new service, and the FedEx address validation is domestic only. I will say that the address autocorrect, I think, does some international. I want to say it might do Canada. I might be speaking out of my ear on this, but some. Okay, so many of you are so good about your IDs. I'm impressed as heck. And off topic, are required? Okay, I'll address that, Jenna, because that's a question we always have. Are we yet required? Do we have a date for net stamps? No, we don't. I'll give you it is June. Indicia is so busy right now. I'm being polite with other things. My guess is we could even get pushed off to 2021 before we're required to have to use net stamps. So if you have the generic old stock label stock, you can continue to use that as long as you don't use the NetStamp web browser provided by Indicia. If you use only quick postage. So that's good news. You should or might be able to buy that old label stock. There should be people trying to get rid of it because only a couple of industries, or maybe only one industry, was given a waiver for net stamps. So if, the insurance guy down the street and the lawyer across the street, those people had to move to net stamps. And if they had the old generic label stock, it's probably just collecting dust. And so you might find some deals on eBay or something for that. So if you want to use the old label stock, you probably can. And Jeff, I'll address that question because we do have a number of newbies. Off topic again, how can we get the software to scan the QR codes for Amazon? You cannot. You have to make a deal with Amazon. UPS stores made a deal with Amazon for those QR codes, and that is proprietary. Postalmate, we can certainly program Postalmate to read QR codes, but it won't read that QR code because it's encrypted, basically locked down. The code is locked down. They do that so that people like us cannot come in and read them and produce those labels because it's an agreement between specifically the UPS store and Amazon. So there is no way at this time for that to happen. Interesting. Oh, Sorry, it's the questions, come down, I scroll down and then all of a sudden they jump. So apologies if you see some pauses there. How long do you have to keep a copy of the quarterly report? I'm gonna go no more than 7 years and at least 2 years. Let's do it that way. I'm gonna say 7 years is a really good time frame, but I want to say it's probably less than that. But tax records are 7 years. It's always a good safe number because nobody can be harder than the IRS. It's probably less than 7 years, but I don't have an exact number for you on that. Oh, are we going to learn how to update the FedEx surcharge on Postalmate that was issued? There is no surcharge for us. Okay. UPS and FedEx have waived the temporary surcharges for FASC and ASO locations. So the reason that wasn't included is because it doesn't happen for us. Yay! So They unfortunately did not communicate that to you. In fact, they did not communicate. Well, in this time, UPS communicated it to us, and then we went and asked FedEx, and they said, yeah, we're going to waive it. So that's why you have not heard anything from us on that, because it's not a factor for us. Okay. Does the post office now have a QR code for printing labels for customers similar to Amazon? I want to say I have heard of something like that. So yes, QR codes will be in our future, folks. I'm not saying the QR code program between Amazon and UPS will be in our future. I'm saying that returns in general, there will be QR codes in general that will be wanting to participate. So that is, remember earlier I alluded to, we have some coming things in PostalMate. I think that QR codes are something that will be programmed into PostalMate probably in the next year to read for specific purposes in case there are programs that we're invited to. We want to be able to participate in that. Kylie, that doesn't surprise me. She says, interesting, our FedEx rep called us to make sure we knew about the new surcharge. And that's your FedEx rep is doing a good job. Most of you would respond with, what's a FedEx rep? And so, FedEx only got back to us 2 days ago. It had to go through FedEx legal to get approved for a waiver. And so undoubtedly your representative did not know yet that the waiver happened. So, okay, keep thinking we're getting closer. Does FedEx have a QR codes program? They might. I don't know, but that I'm aware of, FASCs have not been invited to anything like that yet. If we ever are, and I say that because franchises like Annex Brands and groups like RSA, or Package Hub, I should say, are working on trying to get foots in doors at places where you could do things like this. PostalMate has to be ready to be able to read QR codes should one of these programs become successful and used in this industry. Because I do think eventually we'll be doing that. I think it's just we're in very early stages now. Okay, scroll. Oh, okay. I think we're coming to the end. Most of these are just comments at this point. Oh, very nice, Charisse. She received an email from FedEx letting her know about the waived fees yesterday. So check your emails. Was it from FedEx or did we? I don't think we issued an email. We might have issued an email. Colette's really good about that, so I don't know. So at this time, I don't have any more information on barcodes or QR codes. I'm hoping in the future we can. Can we take car insurance as ID for box holders? If it's on the list, then yes. Please look at the lists in PostalMate now. It would not be a primary ID. It would be a secondary ID if you could. I want to say that vehicle registration is acceptable. I can't remember if vehicle insurance is. I think only vehicle registration, but I could be wrong on that. I'm willing to be wrong on that. It's been a long time since I've read that list. Okay, so I'm gonna AAA or Costco, absolutely not, no way, Jose, absolutely not. So no more corporate IDs, and that's what that would be. Okay, I think we're wrapping it up now, guys. Love to stay and chat with you. I will let you know our support department is a little bit busy right now because of the update. So be sure when you call in or drop an email, and emails do get answered quicker, I promise, that you specify your name, your serial number found in Help and About, and what the issue is, because we do prioritize your call based on the issue. And if you don't leave a reason why you're calling, you do go to the bottom of the list. And if you can't print labels or you can't open PostalMate, we want you to be the next call. We don't want you to be the 10th call. So please leave us that information. I will monitor the support queue for about the next 20 minutes. So if I missed your question or if you thought of one as soon as we finish, please email it in to support@pcsynergy.com, and I will try to get to it or assign it to the appropriate support person to help you with that. Hope that you all have a great week. It's been a pleasure talking with you today. Thank you for your participation in the polls and the questions. You're awesome as always. We had a number of people on this webinar, so we will be emailing you a link to this webinar if you missed part of it or want to watch it later or have somebody else watch it. So watch your emails for that. That should happen later this afternoon. Thank you, everybody. Take care. Bye-bye.